Hi guys, it's Arielle. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you guys are all doing well, today we're going to be talking about everything Olympics and specifically focusing on the areas of Paris that are going to be closed or have very limited access, not just during the games, but also before and after. As I'm sure you guys can imagine, the Olympic Games is such a huge event that there's a lot of setup and takedown required, which means that a lot of major areas in Paris are going to have limited access from today up until the end of this year. So if you're planning on visiting Paris during the Olympic Games, before, or even after in the fall, which I know a lot of people like to visit France during that time period, then this video is going to be perfect for you and also essential because you'll be able to better understand which areas are going to be affected and up until what date. And I'll also remind you guys that if you are planning a trip to Paris in the upcoming future, then you should definitely check out my website, getthemargarita.com. I have my Paris itineraries and guides on there for you. My Welcome to Paris itinerary is perfect if it's your first or second time in Paris. It's designed in a way that's going to help you discover and better understand this city. And then my Welcome Back to Paris itinerary is perfect if it's your third or fourth or fifth trip, because it's specifically designed in a way to help you explore the more secret and lesser known areas of Paris, pretty similar to how a local would enjoy their day in Paris. Both are really great, they're very user friendly, and they will definitely help you enjoy your time in Paris. And you can also sign up for my summer meetup on my website as well. And if you're looking for more relaxed Paris content like vlogs or my podcast, then you can also find that on my second channel, which is Get the Margarita. I will leave everything linked down below, and let's get into the video. As a quick overview, there are three major topics that we're going to cover today. Number one, we're going to go over the installation prior to the Olympics, as well as the dismantling following the end of the Olympic Games. Number two, we're going to go over the Olympic ceremony. And number three, we're going to go over the actual Olympic and Paralympic Games. Now, our first topic, which is the installation of the Olympics and then the dismantling of everything, is actually a really important topic to talk about because this huge event truly is going to affect your trip all the way up until the end of this year. And so I've made a list of every single major site that's going to be affected and the dates of their closure and then their reopening. So really, this is essential if you're planning on traveling to Paris this year. The first area affected is the Place de la Concorde, which as of June 1st was entirely closed off. And this area will progressively reopen from the 7th of September to the 30th of October. The second area affected is the Champ de Mars, and as of June 26th, the Champ de Mars will be entirely closed off. This is the area by the Eiffel Tower. This area will progressively be reopened from the 19th of September to the 4th of November. The third area affected is Trocadero, and there are so many different parts of this area that are opened and closed at different times, so I'm going to try and break it down for you. We have the Avenue des Nations Unies, which is currently completely closed and will reopen on the 7th of September. On the 1st of July, the Trocadero Gardens will be completely closed off and will only reopen progressively from the 19th of September to the 8th of October. And then on the 16th of July, the entire Trocadero Place, including the Pont de l'Alma, will be closed. The Trocadero Place will reopen on the 27th of July, and the Pont de l'Alma will reopen on the 12th of August. The fourth area affected is the Invalides, and as of May 1st, they've already started installations on the grassy area, which will reopen on the 16th of October. And then on the 17th of June, the Avenue Gallieni was closed off and will reopen on the 25th of September. The next area affected is the Grand Palais and the Pont Alexandre III. The setup along the Cour de la Reine started on April 26th and will be reopened on the 15th of October. And as of June 3rd, the Port des Champs-Élysées and the Port des Invalides is closed every single day from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. on the left side of the Seine, and from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the right side of the Seine. The Port des Champs-Élysées will be reopened on the 15th of October, and the Port des Invalides on the 30th of September. The next area affected is the Hôtel de Ville, and this area will be closed off as of the 24th of June, and there has not yet been a reopening date specified. Another area that will be affected by some restrictions are, of course, the banks of the Seine on both the left and right side. Now, the only time period when there are huge closures in this area is the opening ceremony. That being said, there are some days and some times along some areas of the Seine that will be closed, but there's nothing that's really specific. It's all very time and date dependent, and there's nothing other than the opening ceremony that affects the entire Seine. So as you're walking along the Seine, it is very likely that during the Olympics and a little bit before and after, you will probably come across some sort of obstruction or construction, but what you'll be able to do is find a quick detour by heading off the Seine, walking a couple blocks, and then heading back towards the Seine and continue your walk. And then the last area of Paris that I wanted to talk about that will be affected is, of course, the metro. Now you have the full list of metro stations and tram stations that will be affected during the Olympic Games period online. I will leave that link down below for you. The reason why I don't want to go through them all is because some metro stations are only closed on 1 or 2 days. So unless you're traveling specifically on that 1 or 2 days, it's not going to be very useful, but I did just want to list the metro stations that will be closed for a prolonged period of time. You have the stop Champs-Élysées-Clemenceau on line 1 and line 13. That'll be closed from the 20th of June to the 11th of August, and again from the 22nd of August to the 8th of September. And you also have the stop Tuileries on line 1 and Concorde on lines 1, 8, and 12, which will be closed from the 17th of May to the 21st of September. Now moving on to our second topic, which is the opening ceremony and all the areas that will be closed or have access restricted or limited during this time period, which is from the 18th to the 26th of July. During this time, there are 2 zones that you really need to be aware of. There's a gray zone, which runs along the banks of the Seine and includes the Ile de la Cité and the Tuileries Gardens. And then there's a red zone that serves as a protective buffer to the gray zone, which guarantees the safety of pedestrians and cyclists. For the gray zone specifically, if you're traveling in a motorized vehicle, you have no access to this gray zone. If you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, or on an electric scooter, then you potentially have access to this area if you have a QR code. Now, you can apply for a QR code if you meet the requirements, and there's 3 types of people who meet these requirements. You have residents, of course, who live in this area. You have people who work in this area, and then you also have visitors. Now, if you're looking to apply under the category of visitor, you do have to make sure that you meet one of the following criteria. Number 1, you're visiting someone who lives in the gray zone. Number 2, you have a reservation in the gray zone. This could be to a museum, a restaurant, or a hairdresser, for example. Number 3, you have a medical appointment in the gray zone. Number 4, you have a judicial or administrative role in the gray zone. And number 5, you're staying on a houseboat in the gray zones. So if you do fall under one of these categories, then you definitely can apply for a QR code access pass. And I will just quickly mention that while you are completing the application form, you'll have to provide your name and contact information, your birth date, birth location, and postal code of where you're born, a copy of your ID document, a photo ID picture, and a copy of your reservation if you're applying under that category. Now, I do just want to note 2 really big things. Number 1 is that you should not leave the application of your QR code pass until the last minute or until the day of. Their website is very clear that this is an application process, which means that you're not automatically granted the QR code. They're going to do their own investigation and decide whether or not you receive that QR code. So I personally would plan on doing this a week before you need it, if not a couple days before. There really is no deadline or no ETA provided on their website. And the second point that I want to make is that during the actual opening ceremony itself on the 26th of July, this entire area will be pretty much closed off to anyone that doesn't have tickets for the opening ceremony. And on that point as well, many metro stations that fall within the gray and red zones will also be closed on the day of the opening ceremony. So just take that into consideration as you're trying to navigate around Paris on the 26th of July specifically. Now, for the red zone, if you're on a motorized vehicle, then you cannot enter this area from the 18th to the 26th of July. However, if you're a pedestrian, a cyclist, or on an electric scooter, then you're free to access the zone without the need of a QR code pass. Now, on to our third topic, which are the areas affected by the actual Olympic and Paralympic Games. The Olympic Games will take place from July 27th to August 11th, and the Paralympic Games will take place from August 25th to September 8th. And the restrictions during these times are both date and time dependent. Right now, I'm on the government website going through each day and hour to show you how much the restricted zones can change. I would highly recommend that you refer back to this map before you plan anything in Paris during this time period. Now, there are 4 zones that you need to be aware of during the period of the Olympic Games. Number 1 are the roads being used for the Olympics and are highlighted as blue or pink lines on the map. These roads are only accessible to emergency vehicles, security vehicles, taxis, ambulances, and public transportation. No other vehicles can use these roads. The second zone is the light gray zone, which is the actual competition site, and you cannot access these sites without a ticket for the actual event. The third and fourth zones to be aware of are the red and blue zones that serve as 2 layers of security around each event location. The parameters for these zones will be put into place 2 hours and 30 minutes before the first event of the day, and they'll stay in place until 1 hour past the last event of the day. And as I mentioned at the start of this video, this interactive map does not highlight the areas that are affected by the setup and takedown of the Olympic Games. You should definitely keep in mind the entire first section of this video, because even if these areas aren't listed in red or blue on the dates that you're traveling, the restricted areas that I mentioned at the start will still apply from today up until potentially November. So just keep that in mind. If you're already in Paris, then you would notice areas like Trocadero and the Champ de Mars, which are under construction or they have restricted access. It really is important to keep in mind that this map does give you a good idea of what will be accessible during the Olympic Games, but there is a lot more to it given the actual size of this event. But back to the specific time period of the Olympic and Paralympic Games. Throughout the Olympics, the red and blue zones will shift depending on the date and time, as I've mentioned. Both the red and blue zones are completely accessible to pedestrians, cyclists, and electric scooters without needing a justification or a QR code. For motorized vehicles, there are many different and very specific cases that are detailed on the police website that limits or allows access to the red and blue zones depending on the circumstance. There are so many cases that it's just too many to go over, so I'll leave the link down below and I'll encourage you to find out the case that best suits you if you are traveling on a motorized vehicle at this time. And with that, that's the end of today's video. I hope this really clarified for you guys the areas that are going to be affected by the Olympics, not just during the Olympics, but also pre-Olympics and post-Olympics for the setup and the takedown. If you guys have any questions or you want any clarifications, definitely leave them for me in the comments below. And if you have any other Olympic-themed videos that you want to see from me, also leave those for me in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.